last issue, which is quite recent, because I heard people mention it on social media about the issue of bringing Thabo Bester here on what is called a luxury flight, and that we should not have done so. We should have used a police aircraft, which was already there in Tanzania, or at least an army aircraft. I want to explain this thoroughly, Chairperson. That the plane that went to Tanzania to fetch Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandiba Maguduman was not hired by police. It was hired by us in Home Affairs, because this is what happened. The Tanzanians said they've decided that, checking all the details about Thabo and Nandiba, they've opted on deportation, not extradition or any other system. They've opted on deportation. And when a person is deported to a country of origin, they are handed only to immigration officials in that country, not any other authority. Strictly the immigration officials via the ambassador of that particular country. And the Tanzanians said they are not prepared to hand over Thabo to police. They want immigration officials from Home Affairs in South Africa. When police left on Sunday to Tanzania, the other Sunday, not Sunday, 2 days ago, when they left, we asked them to put somebody from Home Affairs who could identify people. But that gentleman who went with them is not from immigration. And the Tanzanians said, we want immigration officials here. So we, as you know, we don't have an airplane like the police and the army. And so our only option was to fly commercially. And we found that if we have to do that, we needed to fly a team of 14 people overall. Each one had a role in this whole issue. And we had to fly them out. And we discovered that then they must fly to Dar es Salaam. From Dar es Salaam, they must hire minibuses, at least 2 minibuses, and drive 600 kilometers to Arusha. And when they arrive in Arusha, must drive another 60 kilometers to Mount Kilimanjaro, where they will find Thabo Bester and Nandiba. And we looked at the logistics and found that, no, it can't work. So we decided to use the method we use when we deport our own people from Lindela to other countries. Members of the committee know from Lindela, we hire buses or kumbis for neighboring countries. But for far away countries, we are forced to charter a flight. And we've got a database in Treasury, which is already pre-qualified. And we just have to ask them, a database of companies that own chartered flights, chartered aircraft. So we asked any company that could give us an airplane that can carry 14 people, and which will be able to get landing rights and all the documentation on their own without the help from the state in less than 24 hours. Because as you know, South Africans were eager to know whether this deportation is taking place. And there are companies who responded. The last one which we took was the cheapest at 1.4 million rand. It was the cheapest of them all. And we opted for that. We never asked anybody that we want a luxury flight, as everybody is saying. It is the cheapest flight we could get, as one of those who responded to our request for proposals, that we want somebody who can do that. And that's why then the 14 people got in and they came back. Now, they came back as our law enforcement officer under immigration. The head of law enforcement in immigration is the one who led that team to go and fetch him, and Tanzanian presented to him, and our embassy got him first and given to him to officials. Chairperson, this matter is not a small matter of why they are refusing to hand over to police. It's not just Tanzanian getting funny. When somebody has run to another country and is handed over to police, that thing is called rendition internationally. And the Tanzanians said under no conditions do they want to be blamed or accused of rendition. So they can't give Thabo Bester and Nandiba, whether to the army and the police, and they can't use any of their transport modes. That means any transport mode that is owned by the army or police, they are not prepared to use it. That's why they insisted Home Affairs must find the mode of transport and come and collect them. You may remember in 2010 or 2009, honorable members, there was a head of one of the law enforcement agencies, I think it's the Hawks, who was accused of rendition and even removed from his work because he took some Zimbabweans, or is alleged to have taken some Zimbabweans and handed them directly, who were illegal in South Africa, and handed them directly to Zimbabwean police instead of the immigration officials. So it's a matter that had precedence, and that's why we had to do what we did, Chairperson. And the last issue, we see on social media that police or us in Home Affairs who went to fetch Thabo must have plundered, because Thabo in court, when he appeared for the first time, raised the issue of that he wants to see the documents which were used to deport him from Tanzania. He wants to see the numbers that were written there. And I want to explain that issue, Chairperson. This is what happened. And I want to give a very simple example. Chairperson, if you visit any country in Europe, and there you get marked, and your bag is taken, which carry all your documents, passports, IDs, bank cards, everything, and you are there in that country, let's say maybe it's London, what must happen to you? Because you need to come home and start life afresh, but you are there in the wilderness. What should happen is that you go to the South African embassy, they issue with what is called an emergency travel certificate. The emergency travel certificate is not an emergency passport, as people usually like saying. There's nothing called an emergency passport, by the way. We give you an emergency travel certificate, which is a handwritten document. We write whatever information you give us there about yourself, because we have got no other document to check. You give us that information, you take it into the flight, and you fly home. When you land, that document has got no use whatsoever. It comes to an end. But whatever information you have given us on that document, we will check that information and its authenticity after you land. So Thabo Bester did not have a passport. So when we bring him here, we can't be like him and bring him illegally across borders without any document. So he was issued by our embassy in Dar es Salaam with an emergency travel document. And the information on that emergency travel document was provided by him. He even provided them a number. Because our official was there, he knew very well that that number can't be correct, because we didn't find Thabo in any of our documents. But then if it's not correct, could he say, no, you are giving us a wrong number, we won't fly you back to South Africa? No, he agreed to fly him back, knowing very well that the number he gave was lying once more, as he always does. But when they arrived at Lanseria, they immediately went into the system to check that number. And indeed, as expected, found that it does not exist, but then did not record it on the movement control system as an ordinary movement. They recorded it as an incident in the record book for police purposes. That means an incident that somebody we flew from Tanzania gave us a wrong number, and we gave him an emergency travel certificate on that wrong number, and we know now that the number is wrong. We have checked everywhere, which means what? It is also a charge, as far as I'm concerned, is defeating the ends of justice to give legitimate law enforcement officers a wrong number deliberately and come and tell in court that we are brought by a wrong number when you are the one who gave it. Then comes the issue of fingerprints, Chairperson, which I know you are going to ask. I said Thabo does not have any document or anything with Home Affairs. That will include a fingerprint. We are the custodians of the largest database of fingerprints, more than police and corrections, because the fingerprints with police are for those who were arrested. The fingerprints in corrections are those who were sentenced, but the fingerprints in Home Affairs are for those who ever took an ID, got married, passport, or even died. The only fingerprints we don't have are for those who only have a birth certificate on Home Affairs, but never took an ID because they are still too young. You'll remember, Chairperson, that we are actually proposing that people must start taking IDs at the age of 10. It is to help us in situations like this. That bill is I've signed it last week. It's about to go out so that we start discussing it. We're asking South Africans to allow us to pass a law that people must take an ID at 10. So be that as it may, let me come back to this issue of IDs. When Thabo Bester was arrested, Correctional Services took a fingerprint on him. The police also have got fingerprints on him. We are the only ones in Home Affairs who never had fingerprints. But when they were taken from Tanzania, those fingerprints were taken. And the fingerprints in corrections in Bloemfontein and all the other jails Thabo has ever been to, and the fingerprints in the possession of police after arrest, and the fingerprint we got in Tanzania are definitely of the same person. And they are attributed to a gentleman called Thabo Bester. So that's the issue of fingerprints. Chairperson, let me stop there.